The sky was gray, like a broken iron plate pressing on the waste soil, and the air was filled with the smell of waste metal and rotten. Lin Hao squatted beside the garbage dump, his hands full of oil, and his eyes were fixed on a piece of mechanical parts that were still complete. If this thing can be sold, it may be a hot topic. He licked his cracked lips and reached out to squeeze. A low mechanical thorn suddenly came from a distance. "Hey, waste boy, are you shaking the broken pen in the garbage dump again?" A harsh sound echoed from afar, and Lin Hao felt nervous. He raised his head and saw 3 guys wearing old war armor walking towards him. The head of the head had a full face, holding a stick in his hand, his eyes full of contempt. "Boss Car's floor, do you dare to come and pick things up? Are you alive?" The slutty man smiled, and his 2 followers also burst into laughter, and the iron stick in his hand was knocking and making a big blow. Lin Hao gritted his teeth and said nothing. He knew that this helper was Car's subordinate. The star-fighting bully Car was the emperor in this piece of wasteland. Whoever dared to mess with him would have to be dismantled into parts and sold. He lowered his head and wanted to escape, but the weak man would not make him happy. He kicked him with 1 foot and hit Lin Hao's back. "Run? I'll let you run." The squid man was kicked and beaten up. His mouth was full of earthy smell, and his ribs seemed to be about to be broken. He covered his head tightly, and there was only one thought in his brain: "I can't die. If I die, there will be nothing." "Waste, get up and knock a few heads, maybe it will save you a life." The hot man spitted, and the 2 followers next to him laughed even more wildly. The electric rod in his hand crackled, and the blue light flashed. Lin Hao gritted his teeth and grabbed his hands and rushed up, his eyes full of hatred. He knew that asking for money was useless, and this helper was to find Lizzie. He glanced around him, and the garbage pile was covered with broken copper wires, and there was nothing that could be used as a weapon. "I can only hold it hard." "What, still have a temper?" The hot man looked at Lin Hao's eyes and was happy. "Brothers, let this kid relax his bones," so that he knew that in Boss Car's floor, the waste was not qualified to raise his head. The voice fell, and the 2 iron sticks and the electric rod were greeted at the same time. Lin Hao couldn't even hide. His body was instantly thrust out of power, which made his eyes dark, and he almost passed by directly. He fell to the ground, his mind was blurred, and his ears were filled with the helping laughter. A waste is a waste. Do you want to turn over if you lose your life? Go dream. Give him another footage, take a video and go back to Boss Car, haha. Just when Lin Hao felt that he was going to be finished, his hands accidentally touched a piece of cold metal. I don't know why, when the thing touched his skin, it was like a stream of electricity rushing into his brain, which instantly made him awake. He looked down and saw that it was a black fragment the size of a palm, with cracks on the surface, which looked like some kind of core part. What is this? What? Lin Hao was puzzled in his brain, but he just told him that this thing was not simple. He grabbed the pieces tightly, unable to see the pain in his body, and suddenly rolled to the side, hiding another foot of the horny man. Yeah, how can you hide? The slutty man sneered and approached with the electric rod. I have to beat you into a bunch of waste irons today. Lin Hao was panting, and a strange sound suddenly appeared in his brain, which was low and mechanized. Detect life danger and start the emergency mode. Will you enter the driving force? What the hell? Lin Hao was stunned and looked around. No one said anything. The sound seemed to be directly in his brain, with an inexplicable sense of pressure. He looked down at the fragments in his hand and found that the thing was actually starting to shine slightly, and a faint blue light appeared in the cracks. Are you entering the driving wheel? The voice sounded again, and his voice became more rapid. Lin Hao's heartbeat was quickening. Although he didn't know what was going on, he wondered that this might be his only chance to turn things around. He gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, "In." As the voice fell, the fragment suddenly burst out with a strong light, piercing Lin Hao's eyes. When he looked at it again, he found that he was standing in a narrow space, surrounded by flashing cubes and metal panels, and a transparent screen on the top, showing the scene outside. Is this a motor armor driver? Lin Hao was shocked. Although he was just a scavenger, he also saw the equipment of those motor-armored warriors under Carr. This place is definitely the core control room of the machine armor. The spiritual link is completed, the system is activated, and the current mechanical armor status, not installed. The sound of the mechanical sound came up again, and Lin Hao realized that his consciousness seemed to be connected with this fragment, and there was a lot of unfamiliar information in his brain. Unset? What does it mean? Lin Hao was stunned and immediately realized that the garbage dump outside was covered with waste metal and parts. When the surrounding available materials are detected, will it start to be put into assembly at a time? Mechanical sound continued. Package. Quick! Lin Hao yelled in a hurry. The helper outside would not wait for him to study it slowly. With his command, a metal collision suddenly came from outside the driving wheel. Lin Hao saw through the screen that the broken copper wires in the garbage pile seemed to be driven by invisible power and quickly spliced together. The iron plate of the raw lens became armor, the broken mechanical arms were reconnected, and several broken energy tubes were even welded into weapons. In less than a minute, a broken but hard-pressed machine appeared in the middle of the garbage dump. Although her appearance was extremely awkward, as if it was piled up with waste iron, Lin Hao looked at him and felt hot and blood boiling. The temporary armor set is completed, the battle mode is activated. As the mechanical sound came to an end, Lin Hao felt that his brain was hot, and his whole person and armor were melted into one, as if his feet were stretched, and he would do whatever he wanted. The horny man and two followers outside were stunned when they saw the sudden appearance of the armor. What is this? A human-shaped monster made of waste iron? The horny man rubbed his eyes, thinking that he had misunderstood. Whatever he is, smash it. A follower came back to his senses and rushed up with a stick. As a result, he didn't get close to him. The armor suddenly raised a mechanical arm and punched him hard. Bang! The follower was smashed and flew out. The crowd took a stick and rolled out more than 10 meters, lying on the ground, humming and unable to get up. Trouble! The hot man took a step back in surprise, his mouth was still hard. Waste, do you think you can scare people by making a broken pile of irons? I'll kill you. He swung the rod and rushed towards the armor, and the blue arc smashed the head and hit the head. Lin Hao sat in the driving box, a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. He was beaten to death and was frustrated, and now he turned into anger. Come on, who will kill who? Lin Hao growled, and gave the command from his brain. The armor suddenly flashed from the side, dodged the electric rod, and kicked it out, kicking the hot man directly into the garbage dump, smashing a big hole. Ah! The sarcastic man screamed, his face full of blood, and he couldn't even get up. Another follower saw that the situation was not good, so he wanted to run away, but Lin Hao would not give him any chance. He took a big step, grabbed the back of the guy with his big mechanical hand and lifted it up. Isn't you very good at laughing? Let me see. Lin Hao gritted his teeth, stared at the guy through the screen of the armor, and then threw the person out of the distance, falling all over his mouth. All three guys who bullied him were fucked down. Lin Hao sat in the driving wheel, his chest undulating violently, and he felt the blood in his body boiling. This kind of power is so straightforward. He looked down at the black fragments in his hand. Although he didn't know what this thing was, he was sure that this was God's chance to turn over him. Baozi? From today on, I will never be a baby anymore. Lin Hao clenched his fists hard, his eyes full of determination. At this time, a sudden rapid sound of footsteps came from afar, and several familiar figures appeared on the garbage dump. The leader is Xiaoya, the famous mechanical genius girl in the wasteland. She had short hair, wearing a torn work clothes, and holding a bunch of tools in her hand, running anxiously towards her face. Lin Hao. Are you okay? I heard that Carl's subordinates came to find trouble again. Before Xiaoya finished speaking, she saw three guys on the ground, and the broken but full of pressure armor, her eyes widened instantly. Did you get this? Xiaoya was so surprised that her chin was about to fall off. She turned around the armor twice, her face full of disbelief. Lin Hao jumped out of the driving wheel, holding the black fragment in his hand, and grinned, unexpected surprise. I will tell you what happened. But this helping the guy is just the beginning. Old dog Carl looks down on me, and one day, I will step him under my feet. Xiaoya looked at Lin Hao, with a strange light flashing in her eyes, and then she pointed, okay, I believe you. But this armor is too broken and its combat power is limited. I will help you modify it to ensure it will become stronger. Lin Hao heard it and felt warm. He knew that Xiaoya's mechanical technology was famous for her help, and this machine might really be a big killer. At this moment, a low mechanical gecko suddenly came from afar, accompanied by a sneer, "Single, the garbage and the waste can dare to move me? Lin Hao, you are so stupid." Lin Hao and Xiaoya turned around at the same time, only seeing a heavy-duty machine with black all over the road was driving on the ruins far away. The one sitting in the driving wheel was the star bad car himself. He sneered at the corner of his mouth, his eyes full of contempt, as if he could kill a thorn with just one hand. Lin Hao felt nervous, and the pressure from the black heavy armor far away made his hair stand up. Carl's guy is indeed here. He lowered his head and looked at the black fragments in his hand, then glanced at the broken temporary armor beside him, biting his teeth, and a fire ignited in his heart. No matter who he is, he just turned over. How could he be so quick to recognize him? Xiaoya also felt that the atmosphere was inconsistent, and she had a snake in her eyebrows and said to Lin Hao in a low voice, "The armor of this guy is of military level, and the firepower and armor are not comparable to those of your waste gates. Don't be hard first, I'll help you to drag it out, we'll find a chance to escape." "Skip?" Lin Hao sneered, his eyes full of dissatisfaction. "I just beat this old dog's subordinate. He is now coming to the door and just trained me. Xiaoya, please help me see if this armor can be strengthened even. I want Car to know that waste can bite people." Xiaoya was stunned, and immediately shook her head helplessly. She took out a bunch of gadgets from her waist, squatted down and began to check Lin Hao's armor, muttering, "You are so desperate. Okay, I will give you as much as possible things as possible." The two of them were busy, and Carl's armor was pressing against the ruins. Every time he stepped on the huge mechanical stance, the ground was shaking. In the driving, Carl looked at Lin Hao and Xiaoya through the screen, and a cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. 1-2 garbage can be quite broken. If you create an iron lump, you think it can be a big deal? Today I will let you know what it means to crush the enemy. As the voice fell, the energy cannon on the shoulder of Car's armor suddenly lit up red, and then a burst of energy rushed towards Lin Hao. The speed was too fast, and the air was torn apart. Trouble! Lin Hao's eyelids twitched, and his brain reached the command. His armor suddenly flashed from the side, and he reluctantly avoided the energy bullet. The thing wiped the shell of the armor and directly exploded a large pit in the garbage dump next to it, with broken irons and sand flying all over the sky. "Hitting is pretty good, waste." Carl snorted coldly, raised his arm, and 2 more energy bursts connected, blocking Lin Hao's evasion route. Lin Hao gritted his teeth and slammed the armor hard on his back. The robot arm barely held. A slight slammed on his chest, but the other slight slammed on the armor's chest. The huge impact force directly made the armor slide back a few meters. The iron plate on his chest was blown to sunken, and a black smoke appeared. Ahem! Lin Hao was shocked in the driving wheel and a blood scattered from the corner of his mouth. He wiped his face, gritted his teeth and growled, "Old dog, come on, I'm not afraid of you. Lin Hao, don't fight hard." Xiaoya was anxious outside, and the tools in her hand were operating quickly, trying to repair the damage of the armor. "I am adding an energy shield module to you. If you have 1 more minute on the top, you can hold him first." "Hold it? I'm going to beat him up." Lin Hao's eyes were on fire. Although the armor was broken, the unconvincing aura in his heart became stronger and stronger. The sound of mechanical sound in the brain suddenly sounded. When high-energy threat was detected, it is recommended to start the emergency overload mode, and the combat force can be increased by 30% in a short time, but the mechanical armor structure will be irreversibly damaged. Will it be implemented? Come on. Come. Lin Hao clenched his fist without hesitation. I just want to fight. I can win again if the iron is damaged. I have no life but nothing. The load mode is activated, and the fighting force is increasing. As the mechanical sound rose, a red light suddenly appeared on Lin Hao's armor, and the lens-based iron plate squeaked, as if it was about to fall apart at any time, but the power was rising straight. He felt that his connection with the armor was more tight, and each movement was as fast as a flash. Go to your big guy. Lin Hao roared angrily, and the control armor rushed over, and the mechanical fist hit Car's armor hard. The punch was wrapped in red light, and it brought a broken sound, hitting the side wing of the Carl armor, making a deafening bang sound. Car's armor was smashed and slipped a step, and the side wing armor was sunken apart, but he quickly calmed down. Car's laughter came from the speaker, full of mockery. It's not bad, waste, and a little bit of energy. But, do you dare to show this little trick in front of me? Let me lie down. His armor suddenly accelerated, and the huge mechanical arm hit him with a heavy punch. Lin Hao's armor was not enough to hide, and was directly smashed and flew hard. He fell heavily into the garbage dump. Half of the engine was buried in the wasteland and could not move. Lin Hao! Xiaoya shouted anxiously, and the tool in her hand finally completed the last step. She suddenly pressed a button, and a blue light curtain suddenly lit up on Lin Hao's machine armor. The energy protection shield is turned on. It should be able to withstand a few times. Get up quickly. Lin Hao's brain was buzzing, but when he heard Xiaoya's voice, he gritted his teeth and got up, and the control armor was thrusting and standing straight. He gasped and stared at Carl through the screen. Old dog, aren't you very awesome? Come again. Carl sneered and was about to take action again. Suddenly a rapid mechanical sound came from afar. Then, 3 light armors were knocked out from behind the ruins, which seemed to be Car's men who rushed to support it. The driver of one of the motor armor shouted through the communication channel, "Boss, this guy just hit our people and even made a broken motor armor. We'll help you to crush him." "Humph, a bunch of waste, even the broken ones can't be handled," Carl said impatiently, but still snatched his hand. "Okay, let's go together and let me break this kid and his iron lump into parts." 4 armors approached at the same time, and the energy cannon and mechanical arms were aiming at Lin Hao, and the pressure made people breathless. Xiaoya's face turned pale and said to Lin Hao in a low voice, "We can't beat you, run away. I know there is a secret passage in a ruin that can leave them behind." Running the bad. Lin Hao gritted his teeth, his eyes full of crazy. "Xiaoya, help me take good care of the armor. I have to let this helper know that waste can also go against the sky." After saying that, he suddenly controlled the armor and pushed it up. The energy shield carried an energy bullet with a force, and the mechanical fist hit the nearest light armor. The armor did not react and was directly smashed over. The driving hoisted in a dent. Sparks emerged. 1. Lin Hao growled, turned around and kicked another light armor. Although his armor was also shocked, he was completely disgusted and rushed forward as if he was desperate. Carl looked at this scene and his eyes changed, and he said in a deep voice, "This kid is a bit evil. However, waste is ultimately waste, which will hurt him to death." The remaining 2 motor armors were fully fired, and the energy bombs were smashed as if they were not enough. Lin Hao's energy shield quickly reached the limit. The blue light flash was directly broken, and the outer shell of the motor armor was blown to pieces and was about to be unable to hold it. The loading mode is about to be closed. The mechanical armor damage rate is 85%. It is recommended to evacuate immediately. The sound of the mechanical sound suddenly erupted, but Lin Hao didn't care at all. There was only one thought in his brain: beat hard. At this moment, the black fragments in his hand suddenly lit up a dark blue light again, and then a low voice echoed in his brain. The extreme pressure limit was detected, the depth of the spiritual link was increased, and the data in the core part was unlocked. The fight assistance mode was opened. What's the thing? Lin Hao was stunned, but the next second, he felt a lot of fighting skills and data flow in his brain, as if he was directly engraving his instinct. His movements became even more fluid in an instant. Although the armor broke, each attack was accurate to the extreme. He could dodge a few fatal energy bullets, and then punch the driver on the third light armor, directly smashing the opponent into a pile of waste irons. 3. Lin Hao gasped, and a fierce smile came out from the corner of his mouth, and turned to call, "Old dog, it's your turn." Car's face finally fell down. He didn't expect a wasteland boy to do this. He gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, very good. But, boy, do you think that just this ability can be awesome? I'll tear you down just by hand today." Speaking of which, his armored energy cannon was charged again, and the red light became brighter and brighter, locking Lin Hao's position was ready for a fatal blow. Lin Hao knew that if he was hit this time, he would be lifeless, but he did not retreat. He told him the battle data in his brain that there was also a chance. At this moment, the light of the black fragment suddenly became brighter, and the mechanical sound came back again. The core data unlocking progress is 10%, and the original program fragment was detected. Warning, this core is not an ordinary mechanical armor part, and it is suspected to be from STAR's taboo technology. It is recommended to stop using it immediately. Tau technology? What's the ghost? Lin Hao was shocked, but there was no time to think about it at the moment. Carl's energy cannon had been fired, and red light rushed in. He bit his teeth and the last force of the control armor flashed suddenly, and he forced himself to dodge with energy. Then he rushed to Car armor and smashed it hard with a heavy punch. Bang! Although this punch could not penetrate Car's armor, the huge impact force still made Car's armor take a step back. Car in the driving was shocked and his face was full of disbelief. "Waste, you." Car didn't finish speaking, a harsh warning sound suddenly came from a distance, like some kind of communication signal. His face changed and he gritted his teeth and growled, "You are so lucky. If I have something to do, I will let you go first. But, Lin Hao, remember that waste is always waste. Next time I see you, I will crush you and your broken armor into powder." After saying that, Carl's armor suddenly turned around and quickly withdrew with his remaining subordinates, leaving a mess. Lin Hao sat in the driving wheel, gasping for breath, and the machine armor finally couldn't hold back. With a click sound, it broke apart and turned into a pile of broken irons. Xiaoya ran over and checked Lin Hao's situation, relaxed her voice, but her eyes were filled with shock. "You just are too crazy, right? But, what is the core of this? I heard what taboo technology it said, but it was not simple." Lin Hao looked down at the black fragments in his hand, and the dark blue light was still flashing slightly, and a bunch of doubts emerged in his heart. What exactly is this thing? Why are there any battle data and what taboo technology is involved? No matter what it is, it saved my life. Lin Hao held the fragments tightly, with his eyes firm. "Xiaoya, help me figure out the experience of this thing. I have a feeling that it is not just the core of the armor, maybe it can help me step on that old dog Carl." Xiaoya was a little bit ahead, and just to say something, a deep bird suddenly came from the far ruins, as if something was approaching. Lin Hao's heart tightened, and his hand holding the fragments couldn't help but tighten a few points. Lin Hao stood beside a pile of scattered wastes, covered in sweat and oil, holding the black fragments of the faint blue light in his hand. Although the dispute with Car was unable to completely defeat the old dog, he forced him back, and his elite subordinates had already set fire in Lin Hao's heart. He grinned and turned to Xiaoya. "Hey, what did you do just now? That old dog ran faster than a rabbit." Xiaoya rolled her eyes, squatted down to check the parts of the armor scattered all over the floor, muttering, "You are so happy, but this armor has been completely eliminated. Have you used the loading mode? I just said don't fight hard. Now, I can't even practice it back." Although she complained, she couldn't hide a lot of admiration in her eyes. After all, Lin Hao was just fighting with 4 people and could still stand and chat with her. This was a silly thing on the wasteland. If you can't repair it, just fight another one. Lin Hao patted the soil on his hand and said indifferently, "This fragment is still there, and I feel that the things hidden in it have not been dug out yet. Just like that the fighter help mode is so great that it is so cool, as if someone directly stuffed the fighting skills into my brain." When Xiaoya heard this, her eyebrows stood up and stared at the fragments in Lin Hao's hand. "The taboo technology you said. I always think this is not simple. I have never seen the core of the armor that can directly connect to the human brain on the waste soil. Even the military armor that Carl used to help people does not have this technology. This thing may be really big. No matter what it comes from, saving my life is a good thing. Lin Hao grinned and wanted to say a few more words. A deep bird suddenly came from the far ruins, and the ground trembled slightly. His heart was tightened, and Lima raised his head and looked over, narrowing his eyes. Come again? That old dog Carl is not giving up? Xiaoya also heard the silence. Her face changed, and she quickly took out a self-made detector from her waist, and several red spots on the screen were approaching quickly. She gritted her teeth and said in a low voice, "It's not Car's own person. The detector shows at least 5 armors, and the energy fluctuations are stronger than those just a few. This is Car's elite army." Elite army? Lin Hao raised his eyebrows and sneered. Okay, old dog is so anxious. Send most teams to crush me? Okay, I want to see how many broken copper wires he has to throw at me. Are you crazy? Xiaoya stomped her feet in anger and grabbed Lin Hao's arm. You have no armor now. What are you going to fight with someone? Hide first. I know there is a waste mine nearby, so you can hide in a while. Hide? Lin Hao shook Xiaoya's hand, and a burst of frenzy was burning in his eyes. I just beat Carl away. Isn't it a waste to hide now? Xiaoya, believe me, this fragment can still be used. I can put another armor on it. Help me find some parts that can be used, hurry. Xiaoya looked at Lin Hao's stubborn eyes, and was so angry that she was too angry, but she knew that this guy was not moving, so she could only grit her teeth and point. Okay, fight. But remember, if you can't beat me, you have to hear me, run away first. As he spoke, the sound of the geese was getting closer and closer, and large pieces of soil were scattered on the ruins, and the figures of 5 motor armors gradually appeared. The front is Car's black heavy armor, followed by 4 fully equipped combat armors, each carrying energy cannons on its shoulders. At a glance, the firepower is not comparable to those few light armors. Car's voice came from the speaker, carrying a heavy mockery. Lin Hao, a small waste, you just lost your life, but you are not going to be real now. I brought an elite army and I have to crush you and your broken iron into slag today. Lin Hao stood on the pile of wastelands, not afraid at all, and pointed Carl's direction and compared his middle finger, shouting, Old dog, you have a single choice. What's the ability to bring me a helper? Come on, let's play with you today. Looking for death? Carl sneered in anger, in his snatched order, give me the firepower to turn this kid into pieces. The voice fell, and 5 armors moved at the same time. The energy cannon was charged with energy, and the red light flashed, instantly locking Lin Hao's position. Xiaoya was sweating profusely, and shed a bunch of broken parts from the garbage dump beside her and threw them to Lin Hao's foot. Hurry up, these are still useful, tighten the assembly. I'll drag it for you for a few seconds. Lin Hao squatted down without saying a word, and the black fragments in his hand shone brightly. The familiar mechanical sound in his brain again. I have detected the available materials and the spiritual link is activated. Should I install it temporarily? Set. Hurry. Lin Hao gritted his teeth and growled, his mind instantly connected with the fragments, and countless parts splicing schemes appeared in the brain. He slammed his hand, and the broken iron blocks and waste parts seemed to be driven by invisible force, and the speed of the flying were combined. The iron plate of the raw lens becomes armor, the cracked mechanical arms are bonded vigorously, and several energy tubes are even brazed into simple weapons. In the temporary armor set, the progress is 70%. When the mechanical sound started, the first energy bomb had already hit. Lin Hao's eyelids twitched and he suddenly snatched aside, barely dodging. The explosion's impact still shocked his ears. Lin Hao! Be careful! Xiaoya shouted, lifted an old metal tube from the side, and smashed it at an energy cannon of an armored machine, barely interfering with the other party's aim. Her face was covered in dust, and Okinawa shouted, I can't hold on, hurry up. Good soon. Lin Hao gritted his teeth, and the assembly speed increased. In less than 10 seconds, a more broken but hard-working armor stood on the pile of wastelands. The outer shell was full of cracks, and the mechanical arm was even struggling with two mismatched iron rods, but as soon as Lin Hao sat in the driving, he felt the familiar spirit connected, as if the entire machine had become a part of his body. The assembly is completed, the battle mode is activated. The mechanical sound started. Lin Hao grinned and roared, "Come on, who'll die first?" Carl looked at Lin Hao making another broken bullet armor and sneered even more, "Are you still playing this set? I won't play with you this time. I will give me all the firepower to suppress it, so don't give him a chance to breathe." 5 motor armors were on fire at the same time, and the energy burst over like a rain spot. Lin Hao controlled the motor armor to climb, relying on his flexible body to avoid it for a few years, but the outer shell of the motor armor was still squeaked and slashed, and the damage was rising straight. The mechanical sound in his brain reminded him quickly, the mechanical armor damage rate is 40%. It is recommended to avoid frontal conflicts. Don't avoid it. Lin Hao's eyes were on fire, his brain became hot, and he rushed directly to the nearest silver-gray armor that left him. The armor did not expect that Lin Hao dared to force the front, and the energy cannon was charged, and before he could fire it, he was hit on the driving force with a punch. The huge impact force directly smashed the other side over, and the driver didn't even have time to yell, and a black smoke appeared in the armor and reported it to the end. 1. Lin Hao yelled, gritted his teeth, turning back another foot, kicking the leg of another armor. The armor reacted quickly and dodged from the side. At the same time, the energy cannon passed away from close range. A big hole was blown out of Lin Hao's armor's chest, and the driving force shook violently. He bleeded from the corner of his mouth, but he did not take a step back. "Lin Hao! Don't fight hard!" Xiaoyao was anxious outside and quickly turned out a broken energy module from the garbage dump, slammed it into the back slot of Lin Hao's armor. "I have added a temporary energy recharge to you. Can you take a few more times? Don't wave it." "Thank you." Lin Hao gasped and felt that the power of the armor had recovered a little. Lima turned around and punched the armor just now and then took a few steps back. Then, one knee directly smashed the opponent's energy cannon. 2. Lin Hao grinned, his eyes full of crazy. He knew that his armor would not last long, but the pleasure of continuously storing the enemy made the blood in his body boil. Carl looked at his subordinates being brought down, his face turned blue and roared, "Waste! A bunch of waxes! 2 left, put them on me, don't give him a breathing space." The remaining 2 silver-gray armors were fully fired, and the continuous attacks of the energy bomb and the robot arm forced Lin Hao backwards. The outer shell of the armor was almost completely broken, and the damage rate was directly poured to 80%. The mechanical sound warned again, "The machine armor is about to collapse, it is recommended to evacuate immediately. Remove your hair." Lin Hao gritted his teeth and suddenly flashed the fighting help mode that had just been unlocked. He growled, "Come on again and squeeze out all my potential." The depth of the spiritual link is improved, and the battle assist mode is activated again. With the sound of the mechanical sound, Lin Hao only felt that his brain was hot, and no number of fighting skills and data flows instantly poured into his mind. His movements became more precise, like instinct, and he forced himself to avoid a close-range energy bullet, then kicked the legs of the third armor and kicked it off, and the other party fell to the ground. 3. Lin Hao gasped and turned to stare at the last silver-gray armor. The driver of the motor armor was obviously shocked and slowed down half a beat. Lin Hao seized the opportunity, rushed over, and smashed the mechanical fist hard, directly smashing the other party's driving into a pile of waste irons. 4. Lin Hao roared, and the sound was filled with uncontrollable heat. He turned to look at Carl, his eyes shining like a wolf. "Old dog, you are the only one left now, come." Carl's face turned dark. He didn't expect Lin Hao to do this. He gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, you really have a little waste. But, I'm not this helping waste, I will die." His black heavy armor suddenly accelerated, and the energy cannon on his shoulder was bright and bright. At the same time, the mechanical arm was raised and smashed hard at Lin Hao. Lin Hao knew that his armor had reached the limit, but he did not retreat. He controlled the armor to rush up, carried a burst of energy, and then punched Car's armor side wing. Bang! The huge impact force made the two armors retreat at the same time. Lin Hao's armor fell halfway, the mechanical arm broke, and a large area of cracks were exposed on the driving. His mouth was shattered in it, but his eyes were burning even more vigorously. Carl was also shocked by this punch. He looked hard in the driving wheel and growled, "How could you have such strength in this waste? Old dog, waste can bite people." Lin Hao grinned and was about to rush up again. The black fragments in his hands suddenly burst out with a dazzling blue light, and the mechanical sound suddenly rose. When the core is loaded, the energy will be consumed soon, so force the fight mode to be closed. What? Lin Hao was stunned. The next second, the armor suddenly lost its power and fell to the ground, turning back to a pile of waste irons. He crawled out of the drive, full of injuries, but still stared at Carl. Carl looked at Lin Hao's wolf claw and sneered, "Without the armor, what are you going to fight me? The waste is a waste, let me die." His armored energy cannon was recharged again, and the red light locked Lin Hao, and was about to fire. Just as the thousand horns broke out, a sharp and broken sound suddenly came from a distance, and a huge black shadow rushed out from behind the ruins and crashed into Car's armor. That kick directly knocked Car over, and the energy cannon deviated from the direction, blew on the ruins next to it, shattering the dust of soil in the sky. "Who?" Car roared and turned around and saw a broken but stressful armor standing far away. The sound in the driving wheel was low and cold. "Car, what's the ability to bully a waste boy?" "There's a way, come here." Lin Hao looked at the sudden armor and was stunned and murmured, "Who is this?" Xiaoya was also stunned and said in a low voice, "I seem to have seen this armor, but this person is definitely not a waste." Lin Hao was covered in dust, with blood hanging on the corners of his mouth, staring at the broken armor that suddenly appeared. The low voices from the drive shocked him. Although he didn't know this person, he just told him that this guy was definitely not here to help Car. Xiaoya stood aside, her face was as shocked, and she muttered in a low voice, "The style of this armor looks like it is used by a warrior who is a wasteland, but this energy fluctuation is definitely not simple." Car's black heavy armor was slammed and got up from the side. He was filled with anger in the driving wheel and gritted his teeth and shouted, "Where's a wild dog, dare to harm me? Seeking death." His energy cannon was quickly charged, and the red light flashed and smashed the old armor. However, the armor reacted very quickly, and the mechanical body suddenly flashed the energy splash, and then strode forward, and the mechanical fist hit Car's armor wings. There was a huge bang sound, and Carl's armor was smashed and shaking again, and the side wing armor was directly sunk. This strength! Lin Hao's pupils shrank, and a burst of hope ignited in his heart. Although he didn't know who this person was, the guy is clearly here to help him, which is stronger than a single gun horse. He gritted his teeth and turned his head to Xiaoya, "Hurry, help me find some parts. This fragment can still be used. I have to put in another machine armor, so I can't help this person in vain." Xiaoya was slightly squatted. Although she was full of tightness, she still squatted down quickly, searched through the pile of wastelands around her, and muttered, "You are so desperate. Okay, fight." On the other side, Car was hit again by this sudden armor, and was almost blown up. He roared, "I don't care who you are, one will die today. Let me open." His armor was fully fired, his energy cannon was ignited, and his robotic arm was also blown and smashed hard, but the old armor seemed to have expected everything, and his movements were so flexible that he could dodge accurately every time. Then he hit his backhand and forced Car's armor to retreat. Lin Hao looked at this scene and saw a flash of surprise in his eyes, murmured, "This guy, the battle experience is too strong, it is more cruel than that old dog Carl." The black fragments in his hands suddenly lit up a dark blue light again, and the familiar mechanical sound came from his brain. After detecting the available materials, "Should I install it temporarily?" "Set. Hurry!" Lin Hao growled, his mind instantly connected to the fragments. The broken iron blocks and parts that Xiaoya just threw were spliced together at a speed. the lens-shaped iron plate turned into simple armor, and the cracked energy tubes were hardened into weapons. In less than half a minute, a broken but hard-pressed armor appeared on the iron pile again. The assembly is completed, the battle mode is activated. The sound of the machinery arose, and Lin Hao rushed into the driving wheel, felt the familiar spirit connected, and grinned, "Old dog, you are back." At this time, the driver of the old armor seemed to notice Lin Hao's silence and smiled through the communication channel. "Boy, you can be very frustrated. Don't waver, listen to me and point me, let's fuck this old dog together." Lin Hao was stunned and immediately grinned and replied, "Okay, I heard you. But I am not here to be a younger brother. Who will win if we smash this old dog first?" "Interesting." The man laughed, and then his words swelled. "I'll control his firepower. You can find a chance to get close. Carl's armor has strong defense, but the juncture is weak. Fight there." "I understand." Lin Hao's eyes were on fire and he controlled the braking machine armor and rushed over. The old-fashioned armor was indeed incompetent, quickly attracting Car's energy cannon fire, and withstood several attacks to Lin Hao create opportunities. Car was hit by 2 motor armors, and was so angry that he broke out, "Do you dare to pick me with 2 wastes? Let me die." His armor was fully fired, and the energy bomb was smashed as if he didn't have money, but the old armor was pressed with pressure, and the mechanical arm smashed Car's energy cannon hard, directly interfering with the other party's rhythm. "That's right now." Lin Hao growled, accelerated the control armor, and suddenly rushed to the back of the Carl armor, and the mechanical fist hit the opponent's leg joint hard. With a bang, Car's armor on his legs was smashed into a big hole, and the whole body shook, causing him to lose his balance. "Waste!" Car roared and turned around, his mechanical arm rushed over. Lin Hao's armor was smashed and slid a few meters behind. The outer shell was directly cracked halfway. He was shocked in the driving hull and his brain was buzzing. But he gritted his teeth, did not take a step back, and grinned, "Old dog, does it hurt?" "It hurts even more." After saying that, he issued an order in his brain, and the armor rushed forward with a heavy punch and hit the same joint position. This time, Car's armor was finally unable to withstand the armor on his legs. He cracked with a click sound, and the entire armor knelt on his knees, and his movements obviously slowed down. "Beautiful job." The driver who broke the old armor shouted, and took advantage of the attack and hit Car's driver directly on the outer shell of the driver. The huge impact made Car's armor shell appear clearly. Car and the driver was shocked and his face was covered in blood, and he finally saw a frightened look in his eyes. "Carl, aren't you very awesome? Didn't you say that waste is always a waste?" Lin Hao gasped and stared at Carl through the screen, his voice full of hatred. "I'll let you see today how waste can step you under your feet." Carl gritted his teeth and reluctantly controlled the armor and stood up, roaring, "Little waste, do you think you can win this way? I have a trump card." His armor suddenly burst out with a red light, and the energy waves surged straight, which seemed to have activated a certain overload mode, and the firepower became even more powerful in an instant. "Be careful, he's trying his best." The driver of the old armor reminded him, and he pushed himself up and tried to turn Carl again. But Carl ignored it this time, and the energy cannon hit Lin Hao directly, and the red light tore the air, making it so fast that people could not react at all. "Trouble." Lin Hao's eyelids twitched, and the sound of mechanical sound in his brain suddenly rose. When a fatal threat was detected, it is recommended to start the core final mode. The energy will be completely consumed, and the mechanical armor structure will collapse completely. Will it be implemented? Finally mode? Come. Lin Hao gritted his teeth and roared fiercely, "I'm going to fight. If you don't fight this old dog today, you will never stop." The ultimate mode is activated, the spiritual link depth is 100%, and the energy is being released. As the mechanical sound arose, the black fragments in Lin Hao's hand burst out with unprecedented blue light. The entire shattering armor was suddenly wrapped in a layer of dark blue energy, and his whole body squeaked, as if it was about to fall apart at any time, but the sense of power rose to a terrifying height. "Old dog, Go to die. Lin Hao roared angrily, and the control armor suddenly rushed up, as fast as a flash, and forced himself to avoid the energy bullet, and then he smashed hard at Car's driving force. Bang! The punch actually hit Car's driving wheel, and the huge impact force directly smashed the heavy armor. Car inside the driving wheel was shocked and bleeding. He stared at Lin Hao in disbelief and murmured, "Waste, how is it possible? Sweep your big shot." Lin Hao gritted his teeth and punched the armor again, smashing Car's driving into a pile of waste irons. Carl's armor fell to the ground, and the energy waves quickly disappeared, turning into a pile of broken copper irons with black smoke. Killed. Lin Hao sat in the driving, gasping for breath, feeling all the strength in his body was being squeezed dry. His armor finally couldn't hold back, and he ran apart with a click sound, turning back into a pile of waste irons. He crawled out of the driving, full of injuries, grinned and spit hard in the direction of Carl. "Old dog, tell you to look down on people. Who is the waste now?" The driver of the old armored armor saw this scene and a low laugh came from the communication channel. "Boy, you did a good job. I thought I was taking action, but I didn't expect you to blow this old dog." As he said, his armored armor stopped, the driving silence opened, and a middle-aged man with frost on his face walked out. His eyes were as sharp as a knife, and an old warrior's iron blood scent came out of his body. Lin Hao looked at this person and had a lot of doubts in his heart. He couldn't help asking, "Uncle, who are you? Why help me?" The man grinned and patted Lin Hao on the shoulder. "My name is Hailang, a veteran from Wutu." He also had a fight with Car, a helping tycoon. He heard that there was a boy here holding a broken bullet armor and hard car. "When I came to see it, I didn't expect you to be really good, and I admire him." Xiaoya ran over at this time, checked Lin Hao's injuries, relaxed her voice, and then looked at the Iron Wolf and said in surprise, "Iron Wolf? The unique warrior in the wasteland legend? I heard that you have missed a long time ago. Why would you be here?" The Iron Wolf slammed his hand and didn't explain much. He just looked down at the black fragments in Lin Hao's hand, and his eyes froze. "This thing is not simple. Boy, the core is bigger than you think. I may change the pattern of the entire wasteland. Use it well and don't waste this talent." Lin Hao looked down at the fragments in his hand. Although he was full of doubts, a bigger fire ignited in his heart. He grinned and said, "Don't worry, this thing saved my life. I'll do something bigger with it. Carl is just the beginning. There are so many tyrants on the wasteland. I'll step on it one by one." The Iron Wolf laughed and pointed, "I am ambitious. Okay, I won't make any more peace. The wasteland is the ground for young people. If you have any problems in the future, remember to find me." After saying that, he turned around and jumped back to the armor, drove towards the far ruins, and soon disappeared into the wasteland. Lin Hao looked at the Iron Wolf's back, held the fragments in his hand tightly, and turned to Xiaoya. "This battle is over, and the old dog of Carl fell down. His ground and resources will definitely be in the same group. We have to seize the time and get everything we can use. I don't want to be too shattered anymore." Xiaoya rolled her eyes, but the corner of her mouth still couldn't help but sneer. "Okay, you have an idea. But we have to study this core matter carefully. Iron Wolf said it right. This thing is not simple, and it may really be earth-shaking." At this moment, a noise suddenly came from behind the far ruins. Then, a large group of wasteland residents emerged from all corners, staring at Carl's falling armor with shock, and then Lin Hao standing on the pile of wastelands, his eyes full of disbelief. Was Lin Hao doing this? That broken boy fucked Car? An old man said tremblingly, his voice filled with excitement. "It's really him. I just watched far away. He punched Car's armor, just like the god of war." Another young man's eyes lit up and his face was full of worship. As the crowd gathered more and more, the discussion became more and more resonant. Soon someone began to shout, "Lin Hao! King of War! Lin Hao! King of War!" The shouting spread like a wave. Everyone looked at Lin Hao, and there was no contempt or ridicule in their eyes, only awe and gratitude. Lin Hao stood on the pile of wastelands and heard the shout. His chest felt hot, as if blood in his body was boiling. He grinned, lifted the black fragments in his hand, and shouted loudly, "This old dog, Carl, has bullied us for many years. Today I have stepped on him. Whoever dares to come to Wasteland and run wild again in the future will be the next Carl. We Wastelanders are not wastelands, but warriors. Warrior! Warrior!" The crowd burst out with a shocking roar, and everyone was ignited by Lin Hao's words, as if they had suppressed their anger for many years and finally found an exit. Xiaoya stood aside, watching Lin Hao being slapped by the crowd, and couldn't help but mutter in a low voice, "This guy has really become a hero." Although she complained, her eyes were flashing, and she obviously felt proud of Lin Hao's rebellion all the way. Since that day, Lin Hao's name has been spread on the wasteland. Everyone knows that there is a boy who has broken the fire to create the strongest armor with a bunch of wastelands, smashing the Starlight Bully with one punch, becoming the real king of war. His story has become a topic after the Woody people's tea and a burning hope in the hearts of countless people. Lin Hao himself, with Xiaoya and the newly joined Wutu brothers, began to take over the resources and floors left by Carl. Although the black fragments in his hand were exhausted enough energy, the blue light was still hidden, as if there were more unsolved secrets. He knew that this was just the beginning, and there was a bigger battlefield waiting for him to conquer. "I climbed out of the garbage dump. Who wouldn't want to step on me again?" Lin Hao stood at the height of the ruins, looking at the starry sky far away, clenched his fists, his eyes firmly as iron. From this, there is an additional story in the wasteland, and this story belongs to every warrior who does not accept it.